charms that melt in my arms, but don't blame me. I can't help it if that doggone lullaby makes me need someone like you to love. Blame your kiss, as sweet as a kiss can be, and blame all your charms that melt in my arms, but don't blame me. Blame all your charms that melt in my arms, 'cause I can't conceal the thrill that I feel, so don't blame me. Don't blame me. Whether you are here or yonder, whether you are false or true, whether you remain or wander, I am growing fonder of you. Even though your friends forsake you, even though you don't succeed, wouldn't I be glad to take you, give you the break you need, more than you know, more than you know, man of my heart, I love you so. Lately I find you're on my mind.
Order. Today we have 6 items on our agenda. There's 3 on the consent and 3 on our regular agenda. And I haven't received any requests for continuances or postponements or withdrawals, so we will hear them in the order that they appear on the agenda. Under announcements and appeals, I have no announcements and we have no recent appeals. The next item, is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, seeing no one. And if you happen to be here to address the staff hearing officer under the public comment period for the other items, if you can fill out a speaker slip form and give it to Kathy, the secretary, so she can record it. That would be great. So we'll move to the first items, which is on the consent calendar, and I'm going to lump them all together. There's 3 requests for 1-year time extensions. The first is at 1236 San Andres, and it's a request for a 1-year time extension of the tentative subdivision map and the modification, which was approved by the City Council back in 2008. The second one is a tentative subdivision map, which was approved by the Planning Commission in 2007 on 817 North Milpas Street. And the last one is a project at 803 North Milpas Street, and it's a request for a 1-year time extension for the tentative subdivision map, the development plan approval, and the modifications. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on these requested time extensions? No, seeing no one? Well, I've read the staff report that staff provided and is included in my packet, and I agree with staff that if they continue to be in conformance with the adopted general plan and the adopted zoning ordinance, so I could grant the 1-year time extension. For each project, my approval is subject to the original conditions of approval that were originally imposed by each of those review bodies. And since it's an approval of the time extension, my action is not appealable. And then we'll move to the first item on the regular agenda, which is 16 West Los Olivos. If the applicant would like to come up.
This is for a different item.
Okay, can you give it to Kathy?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Sorry.
Oh.
Good morning. Good morning. Anytime you're ready.
So the site is located on the, it's a corner lot located on Los Olivos Street and Los Rosas Lane. And the applicant is proposing for an interior remodel and a small 25-foot addition at the rear or side of the house in order to extend the master bathroom. The applicant, in order to do this, the applicant is requesting an open yard modification. Given the location of the house, the current open yard is non-conforming because they have 2 front yards, and the existing open yard area does not meet the dimensions or the size requirements for open yards. So the applicant is proposing to designate the secondary front yard area along Los Rosas Lane to be the open yard area, which will meet both size and dimension requirements for open yard. Staff does support this new open yard designated area. We believe that it really currently does function as the recreational area for the house. It will not impact either the adjacent neighbors or have any impact on street frontage. With the addition, really is a very minor addition. It's an improvement to the house, the functionality of the house by providing a larger master bathroom. So we think that this is, the minor addition is supportable, as is the open yard request. We do have 2 conditions we would like to include in the approval. One is that there were ZIR, zoning information report violations identified in a 2015 ZIR. One was that the pool and spa had been removed without a permit, so that would just be included in the scope of work. And also that the fence and hedge along the driveway and the front are over height. For visually, it impacts for backing out of the driveway, so those need to be reduced. Also, the location of the house is, it's mapped in a couple of sensitivity zones, and so we would like to include on the plans our standard mitigation language that if any archaeological discoveries are made during construction, then construction would be stopped and monitoring would be required. So with that, I turn it over to.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't have any questions for you at this time. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
I'm Amy Von Protz, the designer,
I'm Jennifer Kramer, the homeowner.
and we agree with everything that the staff said. We don't have any additional comments.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing off? Okay, so I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 16 West Los Olivos Street? Seeing no one, have we received any letters or emails?
I have not.
Okay, great. I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site to visit it and get an idea of how the existing open yard functions, and I agree with staff's conclusions that this area is adequate. It meets the intent of the zoning ordinance, and although it is in the front yard, technically it functions as your backyard as if there was another property in this area. So the modification is supportable, but I do believe I need to expand on the conditions of approval just regarding this hedge. Staff pointed out in the ZIR that this area is in the visibility triangle. There's also the transportation staff will have to look at this portion of the hedge too in regards to sight lines of Los Olivos Street to make sure it doesn't interfere. So the condition would read that the wall, fence, and hedge, that combination within 10 feet of the driveway and within the site visibility triangle, and that's established by the Public Works Department. It's in our fence procedures, and it depends on whether there's a sidewalk or not sidewalk and what exactly that area is. But they'll need to look at this area to make sure it's not causing visibility and traffic and safety hazards. And then in regards to the hedge, as it grows down here, I've noticed it's kind of creeping out over the public right-of-way, so it needs to be trimmed and in conformance with the fence and hedge height ordinance 2887-170. And I know there's documentation in the file that it is non-conforming. It was, I think, noted as non-conforming at 6 feet, and the wall here is indicated 3 feet, so a total of 9 feet. So our current ordinance, or our previous ordinance at the time that ZIR was written, has been amended, and so you can get a greater height, but it still needs to be trimmed at that 6-foot height. So with those two added conditions, and the conditions that staff was originally proposing, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve your project. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period, and if either of those would happen, Betsy would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next project is 928 El Rancho Road. The applicant would like to come up. Hi.
Okay. So this site is located along El Rancho Road and Skyview Drive. It's a fairly large lot, about 32,000 square feet, but it is, as you can see, a triangular, odd-shaped lot, so it is a constrained lot. So the house is currently developed with a single-family house, 1,887 square feet, and attached two-car garage and with an attached one-vehicle carport. So the applicant is requesting to actually convert a portion of the existing garage to habitable space to construct or add a laundry room and a bathroom for the to be associated with the what is really the front bedroom. And then they will extend the garage about 150 feet. A small portion of it will encroach into the required front setback. The property actually received a modification back in 1999 to allow the carport to encroach into the front setback, and that was supported. Given the difference, the height difference from Skyview Drive, the topography, to the carport garage area, the site really isn't visible from Skyview Drive, so staff believes that the visual impact will be very minimal and certainly no impact to adjacent neighbors. The additions, there will also be proposed addition, a small addition at the rear, some new decking at the side of the house, or actually at the front of the house, second front setback. The project has been reviewed and received positive comments from the Single Family Design Board. So staff does support the request for the front setback modification. We think that it's a minor addition. It will actually improve the functionality of the garage because one of our conditions of approval that we're asking for is that violations noted in a 2000 ZIR be abated, which will remove the laundry hookups and sink to the new laundry room, which will actually allow for better parking within the garage area. So we're asking that that be a condition, that those CIR violations, including a loft to be removed, and also hedges will be lowered at the front for better visibility. We're also requesting a condition that the trash enclosure, which was noted at the front setback be removed or moved out of the front setback. So we believe that like I said, the addition is very minor and that it will not impact either the visual streetscape or any adjacent neighbors.
Okay, great, thank you. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Sure. My name is Sophie Calvin. I'm the agent to the owners. This is one of the owners. This is Martin McDermott, and we're here to request, obviously, this modification. We feel it's minor in the sense that it's about 15 square feet, and that we're maintaining the existing architecture that currently the facade of that garage is coming out 7 feet. And in doing so, we are making a better floor plan, a better function to the house by creating a proper laundry room and adding a bathroom as well as an extra bonus. So we feel that that the neighbors above to the north are considerably higher, and that Skyview Road is actually considerably higher, and there's enough vegetation along this side that no one will be really looking down on this, and because the architecture is going to be the same, just extended. And most importantly, that the mod for the carport was approved a number of years ago, and that one encroached considerably into that front setback. Mm-hmm. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, one I was just wondering, return the plan on this. So did transportation staff review, you can still back out, right, with this wall here?
Yes.
It still
Yes.
works and all that?
Yes.
Okay.
The answer to your question, I'm not sure transportation has reviewed it. I don't see why they would have. I haven't sent it through transportation. It would go
Just
through
through
when
the
I go through
design.
building.
Sometimes when the design review, during design review process, if there's questions on it, they'll forward it to transportation staff.
But they didn't mention that at
Okay.
Single Family Design Board.
Okay. I don't think it's a large enough project that would have triggered them to send it at this time, just since it is a minor encroachment over. It was just a question I had, and it may come up during plan check. And I'm not saying it's an issue, but it's just something I had a question about.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 928 El Rancho Road? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site and visited the surrounding area, just to kind of get an idea of what the development patterns are and what have you. And the one thing I did notice is the carport is currently filled with stuff. It's not being used as a carport, and that the approval for the modification was for it to be for carport, not storage. So if I were to approve the project, there would be a condition that all that stuff in there needs to be removed, and the carport needs to be made available for parking at all times. And I do understand that it's an extra parking space, exceeds our 2-car standard, but it was approved specifically for that use. And then that was just my only comment regarding the carport in the front setback. There's just one item here I just wanted to alert you to. It's not really in my purview, but it is a zoning concern that it might be brought up in plan check, is the large counter here. Generally in laundry rooms, we allow the washer dryer and then a freestanding sink, so that might end up being a comment for you during the plan check process, just to let you know.
Okay.
It's more of a heads up. It won't be a condition or anything.
Okay.
From me. So in regards to your request, I agree with staff's recommendation. It is truly a minor encroachment. Front setbacks, we do view more closely than other setback encroachments, but in this situation, the amount you're requesting is very small. And like both you and Betsy said, it's below the existing grade. It's integrated into the architecture. It's not going to cause any significant off-site visual effects or making you feel like you're getting claustrophobic going down the road. It is an appropriate improvement. So I can make the findings outlined in the staff report. And it would be subject to the 2 original conditions that staff was proposing, as well as the third one regarding the storage in the carport, and that it remain open and available for parking. So my approval is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they would call it up during that same 10-day appeal period, and if either of those would occur, Betsy would contact you. Okay?
Can I make one comment? Or and we
That's
also-
fine, yeah.
The carport does have storage in it. One of the things that we're also adding below the deck is a storage room. So
Perfect. So
all
it's all
of that,
done.
just so you're aware that we are,
So you're
we
going to
know that
comply
all that
already.
storage, they're taking care of that.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll go to the next item, which is the last item. It's 2609 De La Vina Street, with the applicant and is the applicant here? If you are here and you want to, you already know you want to address the staff hearing officer on this, if you could fill out a speaker slip and give it to Kathy, that way I could have your name and I can call you up. We'll just give them a... Okay, so what we'll do is we will take a 10-minute break to 9:30 to give them a chance to show up. And I apologize for that, for him, for you. If you'd like to come up to the table. This is 2609 De La Vina Street. Good morning.
Morning.
Ready?
Anytime you're ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Good morning. I'm Tony Bauman, Assistant Planner, and the planner assigned to this application.
Do you want my plans? Or
I have some ready
Okay.
to go here. So you saw this project last on March the 1st, and you had quite a number of minor comments. You know, with a thorough reading of the application, a lot of minor things. There's probably at least 20 things. So you continued the application, and the applicants requested to be continued 2 weeks to March 15th. Then we subsequently heard from the applicants, and they weren't available for March 15th. So the next available hearing date for this hearing was today. So they're back today. Because of the postponement to April 16th, we did another mailed notice for the hearing today. And the sign has been up at the site. I checked with the applicant, and he put the sign up more than 10 days ago. Also, since then, we've received review of the security plan by the city police department. And Anthony Wagner from the police department is here, available for questions if you'd like to speak to him. So we provided a staff report for today's hearing, just a short one. Really just describing the applicant's response to the comments that you had on March the 1st, where they corrected. We have a summary of the applicant's changes in response to the comments from March 1st. And as I was going through, I just noted a few things that it looks like they either didn't agree with or overlooked and didn't respond to. And there were some comments, probably one of the more significant comments from March the 1st was the configuration of the floor plan. So I have the March 1st plan that you commented on, and then the plan as it was revised for today's hearing, if you want to compare them. Oh, all this is assuming I don't need to back up and describe where the neighborhood and et cetera, et cetera. So this is the floor plan for the building, and this area, this is this tenant space. It's a little bit of an L shape. This is the Yellow Belly restaurant next door. De La Vina out here. This is the front door. They have to build a compliant, accessible ramp to ramp up from the sidewalk level to the floor level of the building. So it was changed slightly. Here comes the architect. So this was March 1st. This wall between the dispensing area, outlined in pink, and the waiting area was right here. And that's been moved from here to back here. And the security station was over in this corner. And I think you commented that they didn't have a good view of the front entrance. So they moved this wall back to give more space to shift that guard over so he has a better line of sight. And if the applicant has anything to add, go ahead or if you have any questions on this revised floor plan.
Well, I'd asked for them to study rearranging this so that the waiting area is at the front of the entrance like the ordinance requires, but I didn't see any discussion of what was looked at and why it was discounted.
Can I speak against
Yeah,
that?
well,
Yeah.
if he's done. Are you done, Tony? Was that all you just wanted to kind of? Okay, great.
Yes, so we,
Here's a pointer here.
oh, yeah. So what really I was struggling against was trying to get a ramp to work in the space interior. And I thought that this was a good spot location in terms of the square footage that they needed for the admin office area. So we end up still having a waiting area in here. Oh, this is the old plan, I'm sorry. And what I,
If
and
you
what
want, you guys want to scoot down this way so
Yeah.
Bill can get closer.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to say your name for the record.
Yeah, Bill Wolf with Pacific Architects. So what I did was I actually pulled this back and I reduced the dispensary area by a couple of feet. Originally had it lined up with this wall here, so I pulled this back to maintain still the waiting area. And I thought this was still a good location to have security because it gave us an area to block or essentially monitor the entrance in. So I thought that was a good location for that security right there. They also have a line of sight to the entry door. But really what's driving this whole thing is this entry here and the ramp. We had originally thought we could get a ramp outside and that wouldn't work because there was some conditions, I think an easement of some sort that would require modification, and so that's why we ended up with the ramp here. If I end up doing a ramp on this side, I end up taking a lot more square footage. I have a landing, I have a ramp, I have a landing, and then a ramp, and then a landing again. I would eat this whole space up with ramps just to get that to work. So this seemed to be the most direct and also take the least amount of square footage, still allow for a waiting area there.
But you couldn't have, like, the ramp go this, and then stairs to come down, or?
So making this, just take the admin office out of there, you
Yeah, have this be the waiting area and have the admin office back in this area.
I wouldn't be able to I'd have to go back around this ramp because I have to have a landing and a landing at the
Right,
top and the
okay.
bottom. So
It would still take up the same
it
area.
would still take up, and then I'd end up with trying to fit an admin over here, and then I couldn't get those folks to the waiting area. So it's a tight space.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then, would you like to state your name for the record? And then maybe give an overview of what you're proposing? We have members of the public here this time, so just kind of explain.
I'm Ihab Jannan, the applicant.
And I'm Rebecca Agaman, counsel for the applicant.
And again, I'm Bill Wolf, Pacific Architects, the architect.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, just essentially, we are returning after responding to the concerns from the last hearing with a revised application. And we also submitted a red line so that you could zero in on where the revisions were. And so we're here to just discuss any additional issues and items.
Okay. do have a number of questions, because I did review my notes from my last application, or on the last application, compared them with what is on here, and there's some things have changed. It looks like some things weren't. Mr. Baumann had suggested a couple of them, or had identified a couple of them, and then also we do have a new comments from the police department that I would like to ask some questions regarding those, and then also in regards just to the security plan. And I'm trying to figure out if I should ask the questions first or open the public hearing. I think maybe I'll ask some of the questions first, because that might explain some things to the people that are here. In regards to the security plan, I don't know if Mr. Wagner, if you want to come up and sit here. We have another mic, right? Is it still there? Kathy, do we have another mic sitting there, or is it not here today?
Swing this around, sure.
That side.
On the side, there's one? Okay, yeah. I would like you guys to explain the security plan that you're proposing, and then I have some questions, and then I can ask Mr. Wagner some too. So in terms of the security plan, I know you went over it last time. I had some concerns regarding the inconsistencies between the written documentation and what's on the plan, and I still see that those are still inconsistent. So I'd like you to describe what you're doing or what you're proposing, and if there has been any changes since the last hearing. Okay, so here's the third plan. And it has to do with the location of monitors. There's several monitors located here, but in the description it talks about one monitor, and there's push buttons here. They're not indicated. So just kind of what you're proposing with the security plan.
Yeah. The last hearing we had only, like I think, one issue about delivering the inventory from the back door, which gets adjusted by the security company. And the ordinance
Can you
said
speak in the, is it on? No.
Sorry. And the ordinance said it has to be from the front door. And that's what we did change that. So it's the time between 7:30 and 8 o'clock before the employee come. So the security guard will be on site to make sure the delivery is inside and safe and no problem.
Okay, and then what about monitoring? In your the security plan on page 2, I remember we had discussions. It says here now, the dispensary will have a number of security video cameras located throughout the premises to provide 24 hours a day monitoring, both indoors and outdoors. As noted on the attached security system floor plan proposal, a number of cameras will be installed throughout the premises, including at a minimum, and it outlines these. And I was questioning by who, and you had mentioned, well, you'll have it on your phone, and I was asking, is that adequate? What the security company says, should it be live monitored? And that still doesn't really say more. I do see in the list of things that are proposed is they spelled Verizon wrong, but one Verizon CDMA cellular digital communicator with remote access.
It's the security camera system. It's located in the back office, and it's going to be in safe box, so no one can get access to it except the manager. And we have 16 channels cameras. It's covered all inside and outside the building, towards the parking lot and the front door to the street. And it's the memory of this camera. It's safe like up more than 45 days. It can register up to 45 days in the system, and we can monitor this system from home, from the office, from the phone. It's
So
by
you're
me.
planning on doing it by yourself versus having a security company do those monitoring of it?
The security, we have alarm system after business hours when it's connected with the police department and with the security company as well. So when the store locked out after business hours, it's secure by the alarm system. And that's what the alarm system does, During business hours, we know We understand the safety of employees and the patient and the community. That's why we have two security guard on site, inside the dispensary and outside.
Okay, so, well, in here it talks about monitors, and it says there's one monitor. Does that differ from these monitors that are here? It says security monitor, there's a security monitor and a security monitor.
Yes. No, there is one monitor with on the desk of the security guard, and one on the back of the office, and there is cameras.
Right, so what I'm saying is what this is written here, it makes it sound like there's just, well, it says one monitor, and then on the security plan it shows 3.
Oh, I think it's just a written mistake.
Okay, that's what we were talking about before. But, Mr. Wagner, I was wondering in terms of what, and I know you weren't involved in the original hearing either. There was discussions, our ordinance requires 24-hour monitoring. And so I was questioning what that meant. And the response was that it's by a phone. In terms of your understanding of what the requirements are and what the police department requires, is it adequate enough just to be taping the activities that are going on, or should someone be sitting there watching it? I mean, like, because when I hear the word monitoring, I'm thinking, and maybe I watch too many TV shows when they show the security people that they have these monitors and they have several businesses that they're watching. What would the police department be saying would be adequate and that would be necessary for this?
Madam Hearing Officer Anthony Wagner on behalf of the Santa Barbara Police Department. I'm a public health and safety expert with work directly with Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, and Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. Previously, I was a planning commissioner for the city of San Diego that was the chief regulator of the 17 lawful legal medical facilities in the city of San Diego. That said, I believe the police department is perfectly okay with a passive monitoring system that is HD quality, that meets the expectations of the chief of police. Normally, during a crime prevention through environmental design determination, once the building's actually built, we're able to go through, see the passive system, see that it's able to record for 30 days, and see the angles of the device itself. I would say that two things are at play. One, to be able to use this passive system as a deterrent, and the second is to reduce employee theft. As you may know, many of these transactions, all of these transactions are $50 or greater, and employees sometimes help themselves to some of those proceeds. Shrinkage in this particular industry is around 3%, which in this particular case can be well over $40,000 in a month that's just being taken from employees by employees. So it's safe to say that the police department finds it perfectly acceptable that a individual is not monitoring this particular monitor 24/7, but there is eyes and ears and an active security guard 24/7. One security guard is there 24 hours a day, and the other security guard is there during hours of operation to either walk people to their car if they need it, walk employees to their car, or do any other active security to supplement public health and safety.
Okay, so in addition to the passive monitoring, one guard 24 hours, and then
two guards during the day.
Oh, and
during operation.
Okay. And their security plans proposing that the guards be there a half an hour before they open and then a half an hour after they open.
That seems sufficient. But I would suggest that the one security guard, that's sufficient for the security guard that shows up during the day. One security guard should be there 24 hours a day.
Okay. So what I'm understanding, and I think what you're saying, there's not 3 during the day, it's 2, but
Yes,
one
ma'am.
needs to be there after hours.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And if we just kind of explore the 24-hour requirement for security guard,
Well, let me just first ask my questions, and then we can see which ones I'm putting on as a condition. If there's an action today, then we can discuss any potential conditions or changes then. Then the other concern I had raised in the hearing before, and it was actually back, Planning Commission raised it in 2015 when it was originally before them, and it was denied at that time, is there's a slope to the site, and this portion of the building, did you bring the site photos? Yeah. Is lower than the upper grade, and so there's stairways here. They're proposing a safe back in this area, and there was a question raised about whether the exterior wall of the floor needs to be fortified, because if you come underneath and try to cut the safe, although that's probably pretty unsafe, it could fall on you. But I noticed in the response that the applicant team prepared is that if necessary, the back wall would be fortified. So yeah, it's this area right here.
Is there a foundation, Madam Hearing Officer, or is it a raised foundation?
It's a raised foundation,
Yeah.
Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, it's a raised foundation. So that, our intention, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Oh, here, closer.
Our intention all along was to underpin that safe, because we knew it was going to be of weight. So we're going to have to add some structure underneath there to help support the weight of that safe. It is substantial height, too. It's walkable. You can walk inside there. So certainly, that wall and the fortification of it and the door and the locking of it will be a part of what we'll look into as well.
Madam Hearing Officer, I would suggest that normally safes are just fine with the underpinnings of that particular safe. One thing that you can keep in mind is the target hardening of that particular room, Kevlar-based room. And this is a retreat area in case of some sort of a breach. And this is for employee safety. So you have a Kevlar-protected room, and then within that room, is the safe area. And this is specific for employee safety. And I would add that all of the conditions that I'm recommending are an industry best practice.
So when you're talking about the Kevlar protected room, is that your proposed condition 5, where it says, well, portion of it, then the owner permittee shall install bullet-resistant armor panels or solid grouted masonry block walls designed by a licensed professional in the reception area, vault room, and all mutual walls adjoining the restaurant, north wall and east wall of bathroom area.
Yes, ma'am.
So in regards to, this one was color-coded. So the part of this I didn't understand what was proposed. So where it says in the reception area, so this wall here, or this wall, so all here?
The wall, correct.
So this wall here.
And forgive me, I just want to walk my way through this with words because I'm looking at a different map. The reception area itself, or the well, does not necessarily need to be target hardened. When you're getting into the dispensary, the wall between the reception area and the dispensary itself should be target hardened, and then some sort of form of protection specifically for the receptionist, normally like a walk-up window that has some sort of protection for that particular individual to see if this client is a member of this facility, check their medical issue card, and then have them wait until one of the individuals is able to bring them into the dispensary. Normally, there's a one-on-one ratio from salesperson to client.
That's what's described in their manual or their operations plan. So this area, definitely this area here and this area here, because that's the dispensary area. This wall here?
I would suggest that entire north-south wall.
Okay.
And then the back area to what I believe to be is the west.
This?
The other side.
What?
Up there, yes, ma'am. So that?
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So all this here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But I would have that go all the way through to the front. This particular wall right here, if I can use my, this wall all the way along. And that keeps
So
the
he's
adjoining
pointed this
space as safe as can be.
Now, the applicant is proposing, this is bulletproof. The walls aren't to protect the admin people. The windows is adequate?
It's the person that interfaces mostly with the client that is the most susceptible to a breach. So that is the area that I was suggesting.
Okay, that's another question about what I was bringing up last time. With this security person here, the reason why I wanted it switched, one is because the ordinance talks about it being at the front. The other is by the time the person comes in here, walks all the way down, walks, and then greets this person where he gets his, looks at his ID and his card, and then he or she goes over here and checks in. So this, they're already significantly in the building before they even greet anyone. And the question I had to the applicant too is there's another inconsistency that in the annotated plan it mentions that something's going on here, and I can pull it out to show you. So what would be response? So this plan here that's included in my attachment as an attachment, it says number 3 here. It says security check-in area, number 3, and then 4 says security desk 4. So that type of thing's not indicated here, and I don't think it's wide enough to accommodate someone standing there checking ID and coming down the ramp.
Madam Hearing Officer, I'm suggesting that at the very front entrance, even before they penetrate the building, that there's a security guard that's there to wand clients to ensure safety. That would be some sort of electronic metal detector or wand system in place to ensure that the clients entering the building have been vetted in some particular order. And that goes to one of these conditions has the metal detector. I can find it as you ask some of your other questions.
It's okay, I lost your conditions too. A lot of paperwork here. Oh, here it is. Thanks.
Oh, here we go. It's condition number 3, or recommendation, I should say, ma'am. Recommendation number 3.
Okay, well, it says, okay, security guards shall include operable cameras, or security shall include operable cameras and a metal detector. So that should be at the entrance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That was actually another question I had. So, okay. What, with your proposed condition 1, can you please explain that to me?
Crime prevention through environmental design is a determination after it's so difficult to see security in a two-dimensional object. It's our opportunity to walk through the building prior to a certificate of occupancy to ensure that the landscape design or that some of the things inside the building are not an attractive nuisance or disproportionately affect nuisance-related activity or crime.
All right, I didn't realize that's what that was called. Yeah. So what I would recommend, if that were to be a condition, that prior to final, it says the second line, prior to what it says to people, a crime prevention through environmental design review be completed by the SBPD prior to final permits. I would say prior to final inspection or certificate of occupancy for the dispensary, because in some instances there's not really a C of O, it's a final sign off by the building inspector, so final inspection.
Would it, may I have a thought? Would it be better to have that ahead of the final building permit and a review of the plan itself? Although that maybe is not what you're saying, you'd rather see it in person.
Since the security plan is required to be reviewed and approved by the chief of police, they will do another review at the time if this got to the building permit phase, they would review the plan like this, make recommendations, and then as part of the final inspection, they would go out and to see how it was implemented and if it's really going to achieve the objectives they wanted it to achieve. So the last proposed condition that you have says it's an ordinance requirement too, that they're requiring the operator or the permittee to maintain the dispensary adjacent public sidewalks and areas under the control of the owner or operator, free of litter, graffiti at all times. The owner-operator shall provide for daily removal of trash, litter, and debris. Graffiti shall be removed within 24 hours. Our ordinance specifies 72 hours. Is there a particular reason why the police department's recommending it to be less than the 72 hours?
The police department would be very happy to defer to the hearing officer. 24 hours normally, I believe, was embedded within the Medical Act or the Adult Use Act within the Business and Professions Code, but I would have to go back and look at that. But I would defer to your length of time.
Okay. Okay, so just to the waiting area, since I've been hung up on that. This proposal like this would not be satisfactory to the police department because there's not a security person up at the entrance. That's what I'm understanding you to say?
That's a fair statement.
Okay. All right. Then there is another question that I have that I wanted to talk to the applicant with and then also with you. Our ordinance states about regarding the storefront collective dispensary size and access. It says only primary caregiver and qualified patient members of the collective dispensary shall be allowed within the designated marijuana dispensing area of a storefront collective dispensary as shown on the site plan required by the application, along with only necessary management members. So in the operation plan, the applicant has stated, that fact, and that any other member, any other person who has a valid purpose for being in that area can be there. Well, one, that's in direct conflict with the ordinance, but two, the applicant brought up, well, if there's a plumbing problem in the toilet, how is the plumber going to get back there? So it would seem to me strict reading of this is that, well, then you need to redesign the project to have the toilet out of the dispensary area so the plumber can get to it. Or is it, if the person's accompanied with a member or a staff member, is that adequate or is that a concern? Or
I would say one of the things that's problematic with the language that you just read is not taking into account all the vendors that will be coming. There are many vendors throughout the day that will bring their product to have him sell that won't necessarily identify in those particular categories. And our ability to have everyone stop what they're doing and identify people who have a card versus not have a card could be problematic. So it's not really enforceable to be able to pick someone out and say, show me your medical card or what have you.
well, they're supposed to be able to get in there. They need to show their medical card that they have a valid reason to be in there.
Yes, ma'am. I'm referring to a vendor or some other
right.
management or some other entity outside a cannabis facility that would need to get in there. What if it's the cable guy or a plumber, as they say, or any other type of necessary business that needs to transact business with the applicant. So the language in there probably is in conflict with what happens in reality.
Right. Now, the cultivation, the people who cultivate, they're all going to be members.
Mm-hmm.
So the delivery of
Right.
the product and all that, they're all going to be members. But yeah, because I was thinking, yeah, also with like if the safe malfunctions, you need a locksmith to come. How is that going to work? Because you want the safe in that secured area. Okay.
Most other ordinances would read that the person have a reason for being there of a legitimate business purpose.
I think that's pretty much what you said in your plan. Let me read to you what's proposed. It's in here. You don't happen to remember your plan by heart? It says something to that effect. One thing I noticed that would be helpful on the operations plan if there's a table of contents.
I would also suggest, Madam Hearing Officer, there would be people outside of that category because vendors would come in and want to sell their particular product that are not members or associated specifically with the applicant.
There is no vendors, like unknown vendors. Like all our they're collective members, and it's all their names in the application. So except the plumber or electrician or needs to fix something. Other than that, vendors, there's no unknown vendors.
And they would need to have permission from the
here
manager. I
we
mean, there
go.
would have to be a coordination with the manager and
I
authorization.
found what the wording is. Visitors with legitimate reasons for entering the premises, such as the property owner, plumbers, repairmen, and the like, who have been authorized by the management either verbally or in writing. Such individuals must be escorted and monitored while in the premises. So that's what they're proposing. So that's fine. That's acceptable to police department. Okay. I think that's all for the security questions. I wanted to get to them in case you had to go somewhere first. All right, so I do have more questions, but I do want to open up to the public hearing. I just have 2 requests to speak. Is that anybody changed their mind? If you want to address the staff hearing officer, the speaker slips are there. You could fill it out and then give it to Kathy, our recording secretary. Would you mind getting a chair? I'm pushing. All right, Phil, would you mind
I'll just move.
okay.
Yeah.
So the first person I have is Terry Zanini. If you'd like to come up to you can just come up to right here and sit at the table, it's fine. Good morning.
Hi. I'm Terry Zanini. I'm President, CEO of Santa Barbara County Federal Credit Union. I think I'm 3 doors down from where this proposed business is supposed to go. And I did have a few concerns. I wrote to you back in November of 2015 at the first hearing. I was not able to be here in March. I apologize for that. My main concerns would be the security of the neighborhood and what this business is going to bring into the neighborhood. I see that you're providing a lot of security for the inside of the building, but not much for the outside for the neighboring businesses. You'll have large quantities of cash on the building. If your security guard is disabled, the police are going to have to go there and get into the building. How do they access the building if you're monitoring your business with a cell phone? Cell phone service goes down. You turn your cell phone off. We have a full-time security firm that, I'm nervous, sorry. We have a full-time security firm that monitors our business and has access to the police department to allow you into the building and such when it's necessary. Your cell phone, it goes off. Who's going to be there to let the police in to deal with whatever's going on inside of there? If it's not an employee, if it's someone coming in from the outside. And from what I understand, there's a lot of burglaries involved, outside people, not just employees, but burglars, and that they break into the building, they're armed. Who's going to handle that, and what does it do to the existing businesses around them? My other concern is The parking lot is in the back of the building, and you're talking about escorting people out after they purchase their product, but who's going to monitor what businesses they're cutting through, where the parking is? Are they going to be parking in my parking lot? I have members that pull in and out of the parking lot. Are people going to be walking through the middle of that, and cars might potentially hit a pedestrian? There's no sidewalk on the alleyway, so these people are going to be walking in the middle of this one-car alleyway behind the building to get to a sidewalk on either side of that block. And then my last concern would be the aroma that is put in there. Is there some type of special ventilation system that contains the smell so it doesn't permeate other businesses? You know, I have employees that could get headaches from it. They could call in sick from it. I could not have enough personnel at my place of business due to the fact that you want to bring this new type of business into our neighborhood.
Now, when you say aroma, they're not allowed to smoke or within 200 feet of the premise. What kind of aroma? Just having the
aroma
product there?
from having the product inside.
Oh.
I've talked to people that have frequented dispensaries, have worked in dispensaries, and apparently there's an aroma, and it will be released through the top of the vents in the building, and that will permeate any other unit, you know, any other building. Is that true? Have you heard of that?
Go ahead.
Madam Hearing Officer, aroma is normally customary with a grow facility. A grow facility that does not have the proper scrubbers probably would have an aroma that would go a couple blocks. With regards to the aroma for a dispensary, while you'd be able to smell something probably within the dispensary, it would be negligible outside the dispensary. So aroma probably outside a dispensary is probably not going to be a challenge.
And if it is, what do we do to deal with it after this is approved? You know, once this is in place, we won't have a voice anymore.
Well,
so what happens at that point in time?
Yeah. You can provide your comments, and then we'll be responding.
Okay.
So it's not an open dialogue between them.
Okay. And then my last comment would be compliance. Who makes sure that you follow the rules that are set? Is city staff only going to go out once a year, which means you can buy product from wherever you want to? You cannot have a security guard on the premises if he calls in sick. Who's going to monitor all this to protect the rest of the businesses that are there?
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
The next person I have, and the last person, is Theo Cracky? Oh, that's good.
Hi, my name is Theo Cracky. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed medical marijuana facility dispensary. As a local resident and a business owner, I am concerned that the project is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood in the De La Vina area. The application says that patients will have to be escorted by a security guard from the back parking lot, which abuts a residential neighborhood, up West Constance Avenue to the entrance of the dispensary on De La Vina Street. Not only is this inconvenient for members of the collective, but disruptive to the residences and businesses. I believe this site is simply not appropriate for a medical marijuana dispensary. I personally am not opposed to dispensaries in Santa Barbara, but the project should be carefully constructed and well suited for the area. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have no more requests to speak forms. I would like to note that I received a number of public comments that I have read. We received one from the March 1st hearing that I announced at that time, but I can announce it again. It's from Florence Sanchez. She was opposed to this location due to the potential problems for nearby businesses and their customers, such as loitering, noise, unwanted traffic. She disagrees the fact that this portion of De La Vina is designated as a commercial area, that it's more of a residential neighborhood. And then the two letters from Terry Zanini that she alluded to, and they pretty much say all the concerns that she addressed. Another one from Bill Richardson expressing concerns with the facility not meeting state's requirements. I I think what this was referring to is in the last hearing when I was bringing up concerns regarding the project consistency with our local ordinance, and there was some discussion whether this was a for-profit or a nonprofit business. One from Catherine Nelson was concerned of, that the potential effects on parking, traffic, and safety. And then just traffic going down this Constance and De La Vina. One from Peter Candy from Hollister and Brace was concerned about inadequate noticing of the public hearing on March 1st. And he submitted photos showing the yellow posting sign with inside lane adjacent or against the window or the wall versus in the window. I would like to note that this yellow posting sign, it is an additional noticing measure. It's not a required one, so the fact that if it's not in the window does not cause a misnotice of the public of the meeting. That public notice is mailed to the property owners, and it's in the newspaper too. But I can understand his concern, and I've been told that the sign has been up for this hearing. His other concerns regarding parking, ADA accessibility, and neighborhood impacts, and questions where the primary residence is of the applicant. Then another email from Isabel Green, again stating concerns with parking, security, and noticing. The Yellow Belly restaurant, which is right next door, is concerned again about noticing, posting of noticing, concerns about parking, the presence of a security guard, and traffic. Tara Heelan Ford was concerned about ADA accessibility. I know we had a lot of discussion of that last hearing. I'd like you to provide any updates you have. And then Nora Gallagher. It's too close to the neighborhood, concerns with the neighborhood, and parking. So those are the public letters I have received. So I'll close the public hearing. In regards to, I do want to respond to one question regarding, or one points of Terry Zanini's record. Letter. The question you have about who is going to implement or who's going to be responsible for monitoring the conditions of approval. The applicant's going to be bound by those conditions of approval, and if they violate them, they will be going through a hearing process, a notice of revocation hearing, if they do not abide by the conditions that are imposed by either the staff hearing officer or planning commission or city council on appeal. In addition, there is a condition proposed in the staff report that spells out that for an annual review of the collective dispensary operations, and so the collective needs to keep detailed records of what's going on and how they are in compliance with the operational plan and the record-keeping requirements of the municipal code, as well as how they are in compliance with the conditions of approval of the staff hearing officer. And any violations of those can lead to a revocation hearing.
Ms. Reardon, I could add a point to that. Last year, city planning staff went to the city council with a fee resolution to establish a fee for that annual inspection. And we anticipate, at least initially, there will be quarterly inspections by city staff from planning and zoning, and the finance department will do an audit of the books.
Okay, so planning and zoning will be looking at the compliance with the conditions of approval in the municipal code?
Yeah, consistency with their own application plus conditions of approval, the physical improvements in the building, and auditing inventory, records, transactions, all of that.
All right, and then another response is in regards to The applicant's proposing to have a security officer to escort customers leaving the back parking area, but this would not address all arriving customers. Additionally, there are no measures proposed to limit or monitor abuse of adjacent parking areas, including the credit unions, neighboring restaurants, and other businesses, and I'll get into that. And then the fact that there's no sidewalk to get to the front of the store and the back of the store. And Tony, in regards to ADA access, is there going to have to be a designated path of travel? Has building department division weighed in on this?
They have. This underwent their city's development application review team, the DART review, and building and safety reviewed it. The accessible parking space is closest to the alley now, or it was. So they suggested relocating it to this end of the parking lot. But they didn't have any other suggestions, as far as demarcating a path. The expected path is up actually through a passageway around Constance Avenue sidewalk. And building and safety was okay with that route because it wasn't really feasible to make the rear accessible. And plus the ordinance calls for a storefront entrance anyway. That's hard. It's very small, but it would be either out the alley to Constance or between these two buildings to Constance and up to Constance sidewalk.
Okay.
And they didn't have any comments on the existing slope of that bit of Constance Avenue. It is a hill going up the hill toward Delavina. Okay. But I think it's within the parameters of an accessible path.
And then the ones in regards to parking, it's an existing situation. The parking, in terms of the parking being in the back, and for this retail operation of this size, it requires the 4 parking spaces, which they are providing. So they have adequate parking to meet the zoning ordinance requirements, and I have no ability to require them to provide more since they do meet the minimum requirements. So in terms of the patrolling the area, and this goes to the criteria related to public nuisance, graffiti, trash, loitering. In the operations plan, it still says that the second officer will be, or a security guard will be available for patrolling. It doesn't really set out a time period. In one place it does say generally expected to patrol the exterior every 15 to 20 minutes and be available for security reasons. And then in other ones, it says, it says that while the other guard will serve as a floater and be available to patrol the location, including the rear of the building, provide escorts and otherwise assist with security issues. So can you explain a little bit about that? Also in regards to the ordinance, this refers to the location, including the rear of the building, but the ordinance says it's 200 feet from the exterior perimeter of the building. So if you could just explain what was envisioned, either of you. Because when you look at, I have a map that shows 200 feet. Yeah. Go ahead, Lucy.
So yeah, and one thing that might be helpful to mention in direct connection with this is that, we're hopeful that the security here from the exterior may actually be a little bit higher in terms of total impact compared to the other dispensaries in town that have been or in the process of being approved. Because of this parking issue, actually, we are looking at it as a positive for the neighborhood because the security, because there will be a security guard who can act as a deterrent. I mean, there will be an awareness that there is a patrol that goes all the way around. Now, the route, we were envisioning the route being roughly similar to what it would be. I mean, in terms of going around to the back of the building, just the path that you would take. And if more clarity or detail needs to be in the operation plan regarding the 200 feet, that's easy to do, and we are, want to make sure we're complying with the ordinance anyway.
Well, what
so.
about how often? It's really vague. It's just in this one sentence here, but then every time it talks about the job of the second security guard, it doesn't say any timing, how often, it's just the floating security guard will be available to patrol the location, provide security escorts. It just doesn't seem it goes real deep. And when, in regards to the bank's concern and Yellow Belly, on this slide here, this is the subject property right here. And so this map shows the 200-foot radius, which by ordinance is required to be patrolled, and graffiti, I think, is in the immediate area. But so it is a large area that needs to be patrolled, and so I'm just wondering, maybe the police department can help too, in terms of, every 15, 20 minutes, that would seem what they're proposing, that he'd be constantly out walking the neighborhood, or would he go out 15 minutes, come back in, rest, come back out 15, it's two enough. If one's going to be on the inside monitoring the going-ons, and then another one needs to patrol the area, and then someone else needs to escort people back with their product, since it's such a long walk back to their parking lot. I guess I'm just trying to wrap around my head around that and see if what they're proposing is adequate, and if I need to add more. Or
I think if you look at an alcohol environment, either for a Type 20 or Type 21 license, to where you're worried about serial inebriacy and loitering and people walking around, this is a much different transaction, to where it's a high dollar transaction. Those particular clients usually are not of the loitering type. They're getting in their car, they're leaving to go consume their product somewhere else. Very rarely have I ever seen people ingesting the product on site. They're taking it out for other purposes. So it can't be compared to an alcohol environment where you would need to be able to have a regular and frequent patrol of all of those people who are an attractive nuisance to an alcohol environment. This is much different. I would say that from a police department perspective, it's far more important to be able to target harden the environment of the facility itself.
Okay.
If, in fact, the council and the ordinance writers want a patrol in that particular 200-foot area, I might suggest that it's less frequent than what's there now.
Okay. And then, and it would be different if this was for recreational marijuana versus medical marijuana. It would be more of a concern in that situation, which this isn't. We don't allow the recreational facilities in our jurisdiction. Correct.
And a lot of nuisance-related activity has to do with price point. The lower the price point, the more apt you're to have a loitering or nuisance problem in and around the facility. A lot of times with alcohol, it has to do with the temperature of the alcohol and the immediacy of needing to actually drink that. You don't really have those in this particular situation. And it's been my opinion that these particular clients want to avoid scrutiny and go somewhere else to use their product.
Okay.
I have seen federal agencies in San Diego that are within that particular 200-foot radius that try to make buys of people coming out of a facility, kind of like buying a kid alcohol or what have you. And it's really difficult to compare an alcohol environment with a cannabis facility.
Okay. Yeah.
maybe there's some condition, and this may not affect the immediate result of what you're talking about, but maybe a condition in the membership that says if anyone's ever seen or caught doing any of that, obviously they become a non-member.
There
Maybe
is
there's
a
condition in there
point,
already.
yeah, there is, on the membership agreement, there is a list of items, and at the previous hearing, I had requested that, lines be placed here so that they can initial that they've actually read each one. I noticed what was done was that the initial was down at the very end, the signature was taken out. So I suggested moving the signature to the end, so it was brought down here. But I wanted every line items to make sure they read it, that they didn't go through, because I know when I'm in a hurry, it's like, oh yeah, sure, and just do the bottom thing. But if they have to take the time to initial each one, they're more apt to stop and read each one to see what they're agreeing to.
Madam Hearing Officer, going back to your question about if this would become recreational, is it fair to say that if this would become recreational at some time in the future, that they would come back before you for an additional permit?
They would have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because this was purely for medical marijuana, so whatever the council decides to do regarding recreational marijuana, these wouldn't be grandfathered into automatic, it's my understanding, to automatically be able to be rolled into the recreational part. But that's a discussion before the council. And I'm sure the neighborhood would be out in force saying no. Okay. So in terms of the 200-foot radius, the immediate block here, it would, like the 200 block in this area, would be more appropriate to have it more regular, but maybe every couple hours go out and just patrol the whole area.
I think that would be a good idea, and that also would be able to identify some graffiti or something like that that's popped up.
Okay. Now, my understanding is it's your intention that everything that's in Exhibit A is the operation plan. Although this first one's, it's called a dispensary permit application, and this one's called the operation plan. Then there's the security plan. The reason why I asked that, because here, I'm not quite sure what this sentence, this kind of sounds like lawyerese to me. But then here on the preliminary notes, it does say that says the collective medical marijuana storefront collective dispensary permit application, in quotes, the application, submitted by the collective to the City of Santa Barbara, along with all of the application's attachments and exhibits, including without limitation the collective security plan, site plan, and floor plan, are hereby expressly incorporated into this operation plan by reference. So that's why I'm thinking that everything that was attached to my staff reports part of the operation plan.
Yes.
I mean, I know that that had been an issue before, and that we were trying to, make sure that it was very clear what, they weren't just independent, that they were all incorporated together. So, I just, out of an abundance of making sure that the bases were covered, was putting that language in.
And that statement was directly in response to a comment from our city attorney.
So what is it trying to tell me? It says, additionally, it is the applicant's express intent that A, all of the attachments and exhibits attached hereto be incorporated by this reference into this revised application, including, where applicable, the operation plan. Well, the operation plan is saying this is part of the operation plan, but this just says including, where applicable, the operation plan. And B, the contents of this revised application replace and supersede all the other information, which is, that's true. But I'm not quite sure what this first sentence is trying to tell me.
Yeah, well, I think some of it is to be frank, just the lawyerese are talking about making sure that, it's broad enough to cover and specific. If it doesn't appear.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because when I first read, there's a number of exhibits. So when I first read read this, it was kind of like, this is how we comply with the ordinance. And then I read the operation plan, and it says something. But some of the elements that are in here are not in the operation plan. And if this is part of the operation plan, that might be okay. If it's not, they need to be in here. So if it's the intent that this whole thing is the operation plan, less revisions need to be made.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm asking that question. I don't understand what this sentence is telling me, but I understand what this sentence is
Yeah,
telling
I
me.
mean, the entire application package will be a core document that the manager will be operating from. And so I wanted to make sure that all the things that were mentioned in the application are incorporated into the way they operate. So, just to broaden it and make it, encompass all of, because, there's items in the application that aren't necessarily spoken of in the operating plan.
And don't
but
need to be, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them would be applicable to operating, and they just weren't specifically addressed in there. So and a lot of it too was kind of the back and forth with the staff to make sure that the language was covering what it needed to.
Okay. Do you have any further clarification or no?
I think we wanted to make sure it was a very comprehensive plan, and hopefully there aren't any internal inconsistencies by making everything the operations plan. If there aren't, then it's a safer bet to have everything under the umbrella.
Well, because some of it is like when you get back on the further pages where it's broken out when it's getting into the ongoing management requirements for dispensaries. It has what the requirement is of the code, and it says what the dispensary's policies are going to be, and then the procedures for implementing those policies, which is a good layout. But then you go into the operation plan, and in terms of staff training procedures, it says staff's going to be trained on these, and then you look here and it says staff's going to be trained on these. And so it'd be better if it was staff's going to be trained on all of these instead of in this area. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's why I was asking, is this part of it? I guess I'm going to have to use both documents.
Because this is written more along the lines of this is why you should approve the application, because it responds to every point of the ordinance.
This first part is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it goes on when it's talking about the criteria about public nuisance and loitering. It says the dispensary's proposed operation plan requires a management. So then it refers you to the operation plan for what is going to occur. And then like areas of graffiti removal, it says the dispensary proposed operation plan attached to Exhibit 7 requires that the management members take all reasonable steps to promptly remove all graffiti from the property and parking lots under the control of the collective within 72 hours of its appearance. I don't see that in the operation plan. It just says the security guard will take note of it. It doesn't have any action plan for what would be done if it was found.
Just generally speaking on this issue too, what we'd have been envisioning as well is to have, this is part of the application, and this is the application materials, but for day-to-day operations, staff, information for staff, information for management, procedures and all of that. There would be a development of a manual, and that it would be based on, with the backbone being the operation plan, and then just kind of the detail of like the different procedures in order to meet the qualifications found in the operation plan. And then, of course, also the application if there's anything not addressed directly in Exhibit 8 or 7. The operation plan. So, I mean, that was kind of the bigger picture thinking, to have, just the operation plan being the core document that everything is followed, and then having policies and procedures, kind of on a day-to-day, it doesn't have to be as, formal for submission to a city.
Yeah. Well, what I can give you an example on is on page 11. And then on the operation plan, page 11 in the application? Yeah, and then there's page, well, 10 has the policies and rules. Page 14 says staff training and education. So here, on page 11, it's in response to minors, that there's no minor can be employed. No persons under the age of 18 shall be allowed in the dispensary unless they are a qualified patient member and accompanied by the parent or guardian. And the entrance needs to be clearly signed. So here what it says, so it says what the policy is, and it reiterates those, and it says procedures. Employee screening, prospective employees will be screened for various qualifications, including verification of age before beginning employment. Then staff training procedures. Says staff and security guards will be instructed to request identification to verify the age of the person who appeared to be under the age of 18 and not in the company of a parent or guardian. The third one, it says staff will be educated on ways to spot false identification cards, and if suspicious of an ID, will ask the person for a second form of identification with their age listed on it. It doesn't say here that they're going to be trained on that. So that's why I'm asking, it'd be good if it was all together. And then here, then they should be trained also on what documents are required to be provided to prove legal guardianship. You know, you say, oh yeah, I'm his guardian. Well, you do need to have papers to show that you are the legal guardian. It's just, so I mean that stuff should be included in.
Right. And I guess I had been thinking at that level of detail, the day-to-day operations, that would be where, in an employee and management handbook, based on the operations plan, which by default includes the application, any information in the application that's not in the operations plan, like all consolidated, with more detail on things like that. Like, okay, well, what does qualify for a parent or guardian proof? I didn't, otherwise, there's a concern of just, making it too deep, like, just that. The application getting, and double in size, kind of going into detail on every one of those items. And so,
I'm trying to balance enough detail with too much detail, because I get concerned, I think, like the public has stated, who forces these conditions. That I get concerned if, a minor goes in there. Are you going to, ensure that really is their guardian, and it's just not a friend that's over 18? Okay, I'll have to think about that. But it is your intention that this whole thing is the operation plan, and in developing those procedures, you'll be grabbing from all of this documentation.
Yes.
Okay. So back again to my question regarding details. In the operation plan, again, with this removal of graffiti, I don't see who's going to remove it, what's going to happen. The only reference I see to graffiti in the operations plan is that the security guard will take note of it. So what's going to happen after that?
Remove it immediately, either by the security guard or one of the employee.
Okay.
Or, it seems like it might be a case-by-case situation, because if it's on, the neighboring building and we don't have the yellow paint, to go and remove it for them, versus kind of, a different circumstance. And we're happy to put those details in here, to for your satisfaction. There's always a judgment call of like, okay, well, how detailed do we need to get before
I think in this one that when it tells you have to do this, and then the response is, we'll take note of it. That's not doing that. I believe that your intention is that you would remove it like you're supposed to, but you go back and you say, well, you know what? The staff hearing officer said it was fine that I just take note of it. I took note of it. So
We're not gonna wait 72 hours to remove it. That's 24 hours is more than enough to take care of this
you mind just?
That's
going to
our
the-
intention.
I see it on page 8, but it needs to go in your operation plan.
Okay.
You might just have a painter on call that we call
Yeah,
and
of
say,
course.
and then you identify to the owner of the building and say, that's what we're going to do.
Some more detail on procedures regarding graffiti removal.
Well, just, they'll take note and they'll, whatever.
Take note to address the problem, and we solve it right away. Hire a handyman.
Right. On one call.
So then, in your application materials or in the operating plan, I do want to specify that the staff is going to be trained on what documents are required to be provided for the legal guardianship. Then, Mr. Warner, actually, I have a question. Or Wagner, sorry. Back to the discussion about the people who are allowed to be within the dispensary area. And you were saying the police department is fine with specifying, it was fine with recognizing reality and specifying that these certain people could be in there. Should it specify only during operating hours?
I think that's a safe determination.
Uh-huh.
But which page? There's just so much. So that was the item
was just
having
a
to
question.
do with the presence. Was there anything?
On page 13, but it's also in the operation plan. The wording's better in the operation plan, but since I just came to it now, I just asked my question right now.
Madam Hearing Officer, I would also suggest that prior to normal business hours of clients being there, you would still have vendors probably coming in and making a transaction or stocking the applicant up.
Okay.
So if you want to get technical about that, they would probably be there potentially before the store is open to the public.
Okay. And not after, just before.
I just think
Prior.
it's probably inappropriate that somebody's there in the middle of the night or something like that.
Yeah. Should there be a time frame before, prior to?
We mentioned that like 30 minutes. Like
That's when you said the security guard was going to be there. What I'm talking about is if there's someone who needs to come fix your toilet or fix the security cameras.
It's arbitrary, but I would suggest 2 hours on both ways. 2 hours at the beginning and 2 hours at the end.
So that would be 8, 7, so that'd be 6, and then if it closes at 8 at night, or is it 6 at night, Tony? 6, 7, 8, so that would be 8.
And once again, I'm mainly just trying to account for business transactions that would help the applicant.
Okay, so then there is a, maybe Mr. Wagner knows, on page 26, there is a statement and it's a requirement of our code that membership is only limited to one collective. And your procedure for implementing the policy talks about, to qualify as a member of the dispensary's collective, the patient or primary caregiver must not can currently be a member of another collective within the city of Santa Barbara and must reside in the county as its term is defined in, as a principal residence in the federal IRS code. And you say the procedures for implementing it says intake procedures will screen potential members for verifying residency within the Santa Barbara County and determining whether potential members belongs to any other City of Santa Barbara collectives. Well, it's easy to determine the residency, but how do you determine that they're not a member of another dispensary? How are you proposing to do that?
Based on, as they have to be straight with us. We cannot know. If we find out, we can, cancel his membership.
It's kind of a tricky question. I mean, if I would imagine that would be a medical records privacy issue. So, I mean, I don't think we'd be able to. I'm just trying to imagine verifying with another dispensary whether this person's a member. I mean, do privacy issues get involved?
Do you know how other communities do that, or how?
For example, in the city of San Diego, you're not required to be a city resident. You are required to be a resident of the state of California with an authorized medical ID card.
And they don't limit the number of collectives they can belong to?
I've not heard of limiting the number of collectives they belong to. The only reason why a client would go to a different collective is because they believe the efficacy of a different product is available at a different entity that this gentleman doesn't sell. But I don't know of many double dipping that would be similar to like going to a doctor for oxycodone or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering how you determine it, because I know I've been told before that, similar to what you're saying, the privacy, and then people don't really, you don't share your records.
Yes. If we share the records between our dispensaries, the other two permits.
And I know you have this in your membership agreement that they specify they won't.
I mean, maybe just is a self-certification issue, self-verification versus, starting to, how much, I mean, I understand that it's, a legitimate question. We may run into privacy.
Yeah, because legally, the state law limits the amount you can possess. So even if you went to members of 3 different ones, that doesn't allow you to have 3 times the limit. So, I don't know.
Well,
okay.
As I understand it, that would be something that city staff would look at when they do the annual or quarterly inspections, because we'll be looking at membership records to see that all members reside within the county. So we could cross-check among if we get 3 dispensaries in the city. We would be able to identify that.
Who's auditing the dispensaries, we'll find out.
there would have to be a cooperation among the 3 dispensaries.
Yeah, they know, they see the file.
All right, so then I'll move on to the question on operation plans. It needs to be more specific on page 4 under the location exterior rear parking lot. And I've already brought this up, where it says that the other security guard will function as a floater who will generally be expected to patrol. That should, you say, shall patrol the exterior of the building and block 2,000 block of De La Vina. I'm going to put 30 minutes. And premises, which is the 200 foot, at least every 2 hours.
Okay.
So that would get the larger area.
So the block, the block every 30 minutes, the 2,000 block every 30 minutes, and the perimeter that 200 every 2 hours.
And they can take, if it's not busy, they can take, as they're walking someone back to their car, take that time to go patrol the different parking lots and make sure no one's really hanging out. And then on page 5, we had a big discussion last time about the rear door. At that time, we were proposing deliveries there, and I said no. And then trying to get an understanding of the use of that door, and I see that you put in there, the door will be installed that is not openable from the outside. And it needs to be clarified that there will be no exterior handle or no key or keyless entry. It's for exit only. Just because I don't want it to morph over time, all of a sudden it becomes staff entrance. And that's not consistent with the code, and it's very clear everything needs to go to the front.
Okay, so actually clarify then that there is no handle on the door. So going beyond just saying it's not openable, but actually.
No handle and no keyless.
And no
put your
keyless.
code or get your key. It's locked. You can't open it from the outside. There's no.
Even the trash, we cannot take it out from the back door because there's trash containers on the back.
Your plan says that it's only for emergency and for security purposes. So trash would not be an emergency.
Okay, just to make sure.
Or maybe could it, I guess then the question is, security-related purposes, does that include the security of the employees to not, to just be able to directly go dispose of trash and return?
I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with you exiting that door to take your trash out. It's probably not going to happen that frequently. And you guys explained at the last hearing that you're not going to be throwing product away in the trash. So in terms of carrying it around the front, that's probably not a huge security issue, but it might be a perceived issue if someone sees someone leaving the medical marijuana dispensary with a bag, But they couldn't come, there's no entry in that back door. Okay. It's not visible from the public streets. In the back, it's not, I don't know if the police department says anything different, but I don't believe that is, our ordinance specifically says entrance from the front from a highly visible public area.
Yeah, we totally understand this.
And if I was inclined to approve this, I would definitely go with the police department's recommendations in regards to the change to the lobby area. That would make me feel more comfortable being able to say that this facility meets our criteria for the issuance, as well as what the police department is recommending in terms of the security guard. This needs to be rethought in regards to having the security guard up near the front, that you can't get in, or you can only get in a little ways before you're checked that you're either patient or caregiver, or there's a prearranged plumber or someone coming in.
On the previous hearing before, the thing is we put the security guard on the back so we don't let the patient wait outside the building. If there's 3 or 4 walking in, so we don't have line outside. So in this case, they can go inside and no one can be outside.
There was a conversation with that Bomar security, and they were talking about, they brought and and so we initially had this guy over here, so that and it would conclude that the direct view, and then the check-in could if people were to enter, they wouldn't be loitering out here. They could kind of come through here, get checked in like at this right here. But in response to your points you made at the last, you were very concerned about making sure that there was a line of sight.
Well, there was inconsistency last time.
Yes.
You showed the thing right here, but the door, since this was it conflicted with the door, it didn't work all that area, so it was recognized at that time that would have to change anyways.
Yes.
Yeah. So that the last hearing, it was unresolved. This whole lobby area, waiting room, administration, security guard and all that was not resolved, and that was something that one of my directions was to go away and study it. And so now we have different things, different information coming in. Mr. Wolf discussed how the elevation change is causing a problem in terms of the ramp and the code requirements. And then the police department is saying this is too far people get too far into the building. There needs to be some kind of screening occurring up here And then I understand the fact we don't want a line. I don't think that we're going to have a line out the door and the rush to the well. There has to be some.
I may add a thought. Is it possible, and I don't know how this would work with the police, but if you had a person stationed outside with a wand, checking metal detector at that location, looking at ID, I don't know how the communication between these two, maybe with radio, would be. Is so-and-so on our registered list? Can they come in? We've checked them. Now they enter in through this door. They get buzzed in. And now they're in a secure area. Could something like that? I don't know if that's even something you...
The security outside the door?
Right. A guard that's stationed out there instead of inside the building.
That would maybe entail hiring a third guard then, because we want to keep a security here, I mean, inside this area to guard this door. So
now if they would have been checked at the time already for certainly any arms, any metal. And, essentially, are they secure at that point almost as much as they'd be in here?
Mr. Wagner, you want to respond? We have to wait this nice green chair. Oh, that's off the end.
And I understand the lack of desire to have a line queuing outside. I would have, just as the architect has suggested, some sort of wanding here. And then they make it into this particular area in order to get to the protected reception area. This particular area should be fortified and protected as well. This allows the employees to retreat to the safe area in the event of a breach.
Yes, this door is like electric shock.
He's talking about the wall.
Yeah, I know, but it's very secure. This wall, it's secure with the gate. This door is like, how would you say it, electric shock, works
It's a
by
straight,
buzz.
electronic
It's very
strike.
strong.
Yeah, the electronic strike. Well, I
It's
think
metal.
what you're suggesting too is that there would be some kind of a blockade here at this point so that they'd actually they'd walk into the building inside. And then once they were clear there, they would go through another passage.
You can have this particular well used for your line queuing where you're actually just wanding individuals. This particular area is the fortified and protected area as well as the reception area.
Right. This is unfortified.
Correct, except for this particular wall.
Right.
But this would go to condition number 5. The owner permittee shall install bullet-resistant armor panels or solid grouted masonry blocks designed by a licensed professional in the reception area vault room and all mutual walls with the other area there. But I also would include this.
The wall between the dispensing area and waiting room?
So this length, that wall, that wall to the admin as well.
Exactly how the architect is suggesting.
Okay.
And then, now what about the perimeter exterior walls, other than bars on the windows?
I don't have an opinion with regard to the exterior. The opinions of the police department are to fortify these particular areas, this area here, as well as the structure inside here.
Revisiting the question of where to put our security guard, our interior one, considering the fact that this is a very, kind of a narrow space through here, I want to know if we can revisit the question of it seems like perhaps placement here, but kind of somewhere again here, and it sounds like the concern was, well, is it blocking the door, or is there enough room here?
Well, if we were to get to an approval today, what I could put a condition on that the chief of police is already required to review the security plan. So the location of the security guard that's checking people in is part of that they have to review and approve it.
And ma'am, operationally, during a transaction to where the receptionist puts into a computer system that the client has arrived, the client then is waiting in this particular area for a salesperson to be able to accommodate them in this secure facility. Normally, operationally, a salesperson would open the door and ask for Mr. Wagner and then lead them in and conduct their business.
Okay.
So it sounds like, if I understand what we just discussed, that the location of a security guard could end up being a further conversation with the police department.
Yes.
Okay.
So where do you suggest to put the security guard? Just in front?
I think it would be perfectly acceptable to have a security guard positioned at the front where you would have a wand or metal detector and then have a roving security guard. If this is target hardened, I don't see a need for a permanent station for security guard at this location. I don't know that that would be helpful to public health or safety. I think their ability to rove and be malleable would be more important. But being able to identify an individual by means of metal detection, ensure the safety of everybody else in this particular well is of tantamount importance at this particular location.
Ms. Reardon, could I ask the architect a question about
Yes.
this? Bill, does this wall exist? Or are you going to have to
That's a
recreate it?
new wall. And
This would be a
is-
new wall that you're going to
Yeah,
build.
these are both new, and this is a depression in the floor which actually doesn't exist. So
Okay.
we're actually having to drop the section of floor
My
here.
question was, could this wall, I mean, I know you've got an existing front window. Well, that's going to be changed too, but could this wall be moved over this way a little bit to make this a little more, give this a little more space?
Certainly,
You know, shift
Certainly,
that wall
yeah.
over
yeah.
to some point to give a little more room for that security.
Yep.
up
Yeah,
there.
we could, and I did look at the option of making this actually the transaction window. The only problem is the floor and trying to meet ADA. The person on this side would be way too high for the counter. We'd be serving down here. So it's a rock and a hard place, unfortunately. But I can certainly, move the wall back, give a little more room, elbow room for a standing guard with a wand for metal detection.
Does this work if we do that?
It'd still be reviewed by the police department. But, one thing I'll have to get to that. Well, move on. The same question I have on page 7, where it talks about the roving. Oh, no, this is different. It says, once members have received their medical cannabis, they will be directed to leave the dispensary room and return to the lobby area, where they may return to the reception window if needed. Upon completion of the purpose of their visit to the collective, all members and prospective members will be expected to immediately leave. Maybe instead of expected, just say shall, because since there's no loitering. Then at our last hearing, we had a lot of discussion about the verifying people that they're allowed to be in there. There wasn't a mention of a 24-hour waiting period that they come in and sign up, they have to go away and come back again. It's in here now. But there's still not real clarity here. I don't think, and maybe I'm reading it wrong. you have page 10, the black bullet, it says confirming prior to membership and at each visit that all persons seeking to acquire cannabis hold a valid physician's recommendation, which includes, the physician's recommendation doesn't include all these, right? Confirming identity, confirming.
Yeah, that's, the action of the employees. If we can, can add a. Yeah, that's referring to the confirmation process.
So then here where it says confirming prior to membership and at each visit, they need to confirm that they're at least 18 years old. If they're under 18 years old, that they're with a parent or legal guardian and check their ID. Provide the legal document establishing guardianship. And there's more stuff that needs to be put in here. And then in our ordinance, it says the management member shall obtain a re-verification from the recommendation doctor or their office. And then number 12, on page 12, at the bottom, the last paragraph before the bullets, it says the manager will oversee the performance of the collective's contracted security guards to ensure the safety of staff and the security of the facility. It should be and surrounding premises. And surrounding premises. So that's that 200-foot radius.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at? I'm sorry.
Page 12, right before the book. That one, the first sentence where it says the manage.
There we go.
So at the very end. I think you're right here.
Yeah. Okay, so and surrounding premises. That's it. Manner of forwarding. Oh, I off the red line. Did you see where that was?
She was pointing here.
Apologies again. I think I was looking at you from upside down.
Yeah.
Oh, you're. Are you on the operation plan?
I've got the clean version that's here, so I was just
Oh, so then it's a different one because I have the clean version. It's under manager, big heading manager. Oh, go down farther then because the next two bullet, or I just have two of them. So right here.
And surrounding premises.
Now the thing, okay, I was hoping I can get to an action today, and I don't know that I can because given our discussion here at the hearing regarding the security guard and where it's going to be located and all that, it's not what's outlined in the operation plan. And so there's going to have to be changes to the operation plan to reflect the discussion that happened today regarding the location of this interior security guard that's going to be doing the wanding and that. So that would be like on page 6, and then here on page 13, because my comment here was that the annotated site plan I pulled out earlier, the site plan and the discussion all conflict of where this ID, the identification and the recommendation check's going to occur. The annotated plan showed it was in the ramp area, which is more consistent with what the police department's recommending. Then the site plan shows it happening here. And then the written description says it's between the entrance area and lobby, which I wasn't quite sure where that is. So this has to be, since you're going to be required to follow this, I want to review it to make sure it's what that we're agreeing to. So just to let you know right now that we will have to continue this one more time just to get it at the level that it is approvable, because you're going to be bound by this, whatever this is. And I don't feel comfortable going and being more descriptive in the minutes, outlining all the changes, because I think they're significant enough. I want to review it again. So just to let you know that that's where it is. So on page 6, that would be an area, page 13, that need to be revised to reflect our discussion. On page 14, where it talks about the security guard, this is where it says, and this is where maybe you can beef up what you're going to do regarding the graffiti. Says, the floating security guard will be available to patrol the location. It can't be available to patrol. That's one of its main duties, is to patrol the area and to escort people. So it's a main duty, not just available, and then specify how often. And then towards the last sentence, it says, this is the last sentence, this person will serve as a deterrent for nuisance and loitering behavior, which is true, and will take note of any graffiti, trash, or other such issues in order to assist with maintaining the peace, orderliness, and cleanliness of the dispensary's exterior neighboring areas. So this is the only place where it's talking about trash, graffiti. It's like, so, okay, they're going to take note of it. What's follow-up? Are they going to...
Report to manager.
Yeah, if it's a significant amount of trash, report to the manager. If it's little, maybe they have some bag they stick it in, or what action, and there needs to be action to that. And then just on staff training, is just I have the comment about, it doesn't include all the areas or all the things that are described in the application, but if they're together, that's probably fine. This is another area that we had discussion on, and I think it's just got changed in one area, not in the other. Every time a patient comes to visit, you're required to validate that they're still a qualified patient and that their recommendation is still valid. And we had that discussion, and there were some changes here. It does say on page 18, the top, says staff will verify each member's status prior to dispensing cannabis and each time the member visits the dispensary. But on the previous page, on the third paragraph under the bullets, it says verification includes dispensary staff contacting the recommending physician or his or her agent, verifying the physician's identity, and verifying his or her state license status. And it says each prospective member's status as a qualified patient or primary caregiver will be reviewed at least every 12 months. Well, it's every time they come. So.
Oh, did that not get fixed?
I don't know. And then it says a record will be kept of all verifications. I think it was just that it wasn't.
Maybe it was the second one. It was the second one.
And then also in regards to, just to let you know that if this is approved or if I take action, I will be following what the police department has recommended, that there be at least two security guards during the day and one 24 hours. So either you can add that into your security portion, or if I get to the point that I am going to approve this application, it will be a condition. So the difference would be a condition you can appeal to the planning commission. If it's part of your plan, you're doing it. So it's going to...
Can I ask Mr. Wagner a
But you
question?
need to go on the mic.
What's the purpose for 24-hour security after the business hours when everyone leaves home? What's the basic rule for the alarm system in the store?
Madam Hearing Officer, customarily there are about 150 transactions a day at $50 a transaction, and also no less than 50 deliveries through a brick and mortar establishment as well. That's about $10,000 a day in cash. Most dispensaries that I know have no less than $400,000 in cash in their safe area, and that's why I have Target harden that safe room. So the applicant will have to pay all his employees in cash, will have to pay all his vendors in cash. Most transactions will be cash-based because of the 280E IRS complications with the banking system. So when I'm making security recommendations, it's not predicated on the product that's there. That's not what's attractive to someone breaching the facility. What's attractive is how quickly they can move that amount of cash. If you put $400,000 on this table, you and I could move it with ease. So that's the main reason why I'm suggesting the 24-hour security. The other thing is it's a deterrent. If thieves know that there's security and that there is a security guard, it's less likely to be attempted to have been breached. It also is an industry standard. All of the locations, regardless of component, from manufacturing to testing to transportation and distribution, as well as cultivation and dispensing, all have 24-hour security. Most major metropolitan areas have armed guards that are not in conflict with federal firearms laws, that are certified by the state in which they reside. So it is, in fact, an industry best practice, but the main thing we are accomplishing with this type of security plan is to protect the employees and protect the applicant because there's such a high volume of cash.
Okay. And
Who's gonna get to the safe with this quick if the alarm system is monitored the whole building
That-
and we're gonna
what we
enforce
were-
the wall? The safe is 750 kilogram weighs. It's gonna take them hours to get to the safe, to try to move the safe. Like there is impossibility here to get to the safe. Like if there is motion sensors on every wall, like if somebody tried to break in, the police department will notice that. The alarm is registered with the police department.
we were,
And they will be on site in like less than 5 minutes.
we just were having a conversation, when we got the police recommendations, and, security is the most important thing here. One question though that was, just balancing the risk versus the financial additional, burdens that could be when looking, the thing that just came to my mind is like, especially today, we're talking even more how this is going to be, this will be fortified, Kevlar, it's a locked, we were just wondering, in terms of balancing the expense of hiring a 24-hour security guard, whereas balanced against the actual risk that, and I know you said deterrent, which, that's, does the benefit of the deterrent effect, is it really, how worth it is balanced against the extra expense of hiring a security guard? We were just trying to explore that, and we also were kind of wondering about, whether is this a requirement for all medical marijuana dispensaries in the city, or is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would say there's no substitute for a living, breathing person that's able to understand a situation and act accordingly. An alarm system can't do that. A passive system cannot do that. So there is no substitute for having a human being there, being able to react instantaneously and make a secure decision, whether they be calling the police or just being there as a deterrent. But it is, in fact, an industry standard. If you go to any other municipality that has allowed a medical facility to operate within the confines of their city, you'll find 24-hour security. Most of it will be 24-hour armed security, but this particular municipality has made a different decision. But the police department stands by this particular recommendation to you, and those are the reasons why we do so.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, so yeah, just to give you a heads up, and then you provide additional information, but like I said, I am inclined to go with the police department's recommendations. So either you can include it here, or you can decide not to, and it could be a condition. And since it's not part of your project description, you can appeal that if it were to come to that. So then in regards on page 20 where it talks about the security guards, it just says, the security guards will be on premises from prior to opening until after closing. And then your actual security proposal you got from the security firm says the half an hour. So if you include the half an hour there or here, and then also if you added the additional provision that they would be there if the acceptable people, the plumber that comes there 2 hours before, 2 hours after, that they will be there at that with them if they come before hours.
Could I ask a question too? Would it be possible to develop a plan and then have the police department review it prior to our meeting so that maybe we've...
Yeah, what I was going to do this time is continue it indefinitely, and I would encourage you to meet with, that would facilitate the process so that you don't submit 2 weeks before and then we're at the same boat, because I do want to take an action on this. I don't,
Yeah.
the first time I've ever continued something 2 times, so.
And Madam Hearing Officer, I would be more than happy to go to the location and work with the applicant.
Oh, great, that would be
That'd
awesome.
Great, yeah, appreciate that.
That would really streamline things.
Yep, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
And then on page 2 of your membership agreement and registration form, I want lines on each of these for them to, I'll be clear this time. And then on number 2, where it says, no person may be admitted as a member unless holding a valid recommendation from a physician. Okay, the bottom where it says, this process may take 1 business day or longer, depending. It will take a minimum of 24 hours or longer. That's a code requirement because of that waiting period. So just.
Mr. Wagner has to leave.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much
So
for
you guys
being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you gave the contact information?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And then on page 7, number 19, and it's under what's a section F. It says membership rules and dispensary policies. And this is just a rule or policy. That a member of the collective must not be a member of any other collective of the city. I would like that striked from there and moved up under these I understand ones, so that I understand that pursuant to Santa Barbara Municipal Code, it's actually 28.80.080.G.5, that I am limited to membership in only one collective. So that it's up under there, and then they, it's an I understand instead of you must not. It's, your intent with the Santa Barbara Collective posted notices, I know last time I was like, oh yeah, there's a list. I was trying to write down on the list. Was your intent with this to outline all notices and signage, or just interior notice and signage?
Let's see, it may, I'm thinking in my mind when I was drafting it, I was visualizing the interior, but we can add exterior as well.
Because some of these are on the exterior, or they're supposed to be on the exterior, like the dispensary operating hours. That needs to be on the outside. The reason why I was asking is because when I looked through the operation plan and your application document, first one, it has a number of signs. And so I went and I listed more, like the restroom signage, which is on page 9. There's a no loitering sign, the name and the emergency contact phone number of the operator. And then there's some other items that need to be double checked on page 6 and 7. And in the security plan on page 6. So if it was intended, I mean, it would be good if it was an exhausted list because there's signs all throughout that it could be expanded. And then where they are, like the parking and security escorts, that was in the waiting area. Minor premises, it was outside, minor on outside and inside. And then have a note that, you know, all outdoor signage shall comply with the City of Santa Barbara sign ordinance. And then in regards to the missing ones was the restroom sign, the loitering sign, name and emergency contact sign. The signs indicated on page 6 of the security plan, items 8 and 9. And then double check that the list contains notices listed on pages 6 and 7. Then you just have a complete listing of all the signs that are here, because you also talk about in the application, I think it's in the application packet, that the reception staff is responsible for ensuring all these signs remain up or in the area. That way they have a list of what the signage is that is supposed to be there.
One sign, I don't know if it's on the list, is the actual permit.
Yes, it's on the list.
Okay.
Dispensary storefront collective permit.
Okay, because it has to be displayed.
Yeah, the registration and the business license, that was one that's listed on the page 6 of the operation plan. So yeah, that one was one of those. And then the proposed security plan, it needs to be consistent with what's shown on the plan. So you need to revise it and to have the panic buttons, to have the correct number of monitors. You know, the lists that are on here on the plan, this is the description of it. So they need to be consistent.
So do you suggest Bomber Security has to revise everything?
No, this is yours. You attached theirs,
Yeah.
and then you included the particulars of it. Theirs, I didn't see. You're talking about this.
Yeah.
This report. I don't see that it numbers the number of cameras and monitors and stuff in here. It talks about what they're doing, the training.
I know that there's some additional attachments to it, the schematics and.
Yeah, these are just.
The type of model of the camera system.
Yeah, so these are the specifications, and then in here, my reading of it is in this part of it said how many, and then in this part of it showed what the specifications are, and this part of it says what our guards are going to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
This is, okay, so then this needs to be correct with this, or consistent with this.
Yes.
Description needs to match the plan.
And then I just had questions. This refers to, and Bill, you did this annotate?
Yeah.
Is this, no, this is Michigan, this one, so A2. A21. Okay, so in the discussion in the security plan, it says security cameras. One in the main entrance area monitoring the internal entranceway, security floor plan, item number 1. So what's item number 1? Here's the legends. And then on the next page it says 2 in the reception staff area, 1 monitoring the reception window area of the lobby, and 1 monitoring. It says items 2 and 3.
Yeah, I don't know, but it sounds like that's what these
Yeah,
are. But
so I
the
don't know.
numbers,
Yeah, so it's not consistent on what.
Yeah.
I don't know where they are. I mean, I could read and look, and then I see this is new.
Yeah, that
So-
legend there refers to these numbered items just as an identification as well as this legend here. But I just need to get a copy, I guess, of your.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what I
so
was
the
thinking.
same. So that's
For,
one of the examples of
versa,
not
yeah.
being consistent on
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that, so
Mr. Reardon, do you think it's important to even have this
does that
when we have
contradict
this?
that?
Could this just be the approved security plan?
That would be the other option is
That's-
as
That's the
shown.
way most projects are
Yeah.
that come
Yeah.
before the show, you know, for
Yeah.
modifications and whatever.
Yeah.
The approved set of plans is the governing approved
the
document.
map that you would use as an inspector in the field as well.
Right.
Yeah, so this does carry more weight, but
I
it
think
is,
so. Yeah, I mean,
since
we can talk
the
a
ordinance
little
talks
bit.
about a security plan, I think
That could be
this
this.
is this, but
Yeah.
this could be general explanation of what it is.
Yeah, C sheet 8.2.1 as well for.
Right, for the actual, the cameras and
Locations
that kind of
and
stuff.
numbers.
But
I
in
mean,
terms
for-
of the,
Yeah, for physical improvements, they could be
Right,
on
correct.
here. For operational type
Yes,
things, they
correct,
could be the
exactly,
text.
yes.
That's fine.
Uh-huh.
That way we don't have to keep looking at
Cross-referencing, why doesn't
consistency.
this- yeah,
Right.
match that, and the numbers, and all it takes is some modification during plan check as well, then it messes
Right.
up all of that.
Yeah, that would be a better way to go. So that's what need to be revised. So the physical improvements on plan and operational measures and document. And then the updating the floating security guards' duties. So on page 6, on those, the V11, so 8 and 9, those are the other signs that I was alluding to put on your, I have page 6, I don't have the markup kind.
Page 6.
So, yeah, that would be right above secure cannabis storage.
Did I miss that? I missed that.
Oh, it's just this list here, these are the signs that I was saying that
Oh,
could be
yes.
on that
Okay,
list.
got it.
That- And then when you guys meet with Mr. Wagner again, this was brought up the question in my mind to ask him about the fortification of the floor or the wall. The statement on page 6 under secure cannabis storage, it says the rear of the exterior wall of the premises will be reinforced as necessary to prevent access to the subfloor area underneath the office. So I think that's something you'd be working with him out there as part of the security plan. So whatever is the determination there, whether that statement stays in or if it's, it needs to be expanded or what, it'd be here.
That's this area.
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
These-
Yeah, the underfloor area, there's access to that. and
Mhm.
security.
Mrs. Reardon,
Yes.
the 24-hour security plan, is it the 24 hours security guard on site?
You guys can go away and think about that, and I gave you an early warning that I'm inclined to put that on, but, or not early warning, just early, I just wanted to let you know where I'm landing on what was presented today. And you can go away and discuss it and provide, your, the pros and cons in your eyes are why you don't believe it's necessary and why what you're doing provides that adequate or equivalent type of protection that they're suggesting. So since there's no decision, there's no done deal, I just wanted to let you know, a lot of times applicants want to know, well, what, if we go away, what's going to happen? What are you going to be telling me? So I just wanted to let you know that since The ordinance does say that this security plan is reviewed and approved by the chief of police, and they're recommending these conditions. I need to take them seriously and really look at them. So I've heard his side, and I've heard your initial reaction to it, but you can go away and provide more information on it, and not only just do the plan. What I would like next time is for like an introductory letter, explaining how you made the changes or responded to the concerns that was raised today. And it doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to regurgitate everything in your plan, but just, this point was brought up and it's addressed on page blank, or we addressed it this way, or we didn't really address it totally that way, but we think this way accomplishes the same goal. Just some explanation of it.
His point of view, like based on, like we can open business account at the bank now, for the.
Well, then you provide that.
We deal with cash.
Okay.
It's
Well, then
not gonna be this way.
Yeah. Well, then I would
I will
provide that
talk to
all.
him, yes.
Yeah, and then provide all that in writing, and I'll take it all into consideration.
Sure.
Low amounts of cash at the location.
Yeah. We put sign like there's no cash left in the dispensary.
$1,000 on premise at any one time.
Well, and if they get a security, oh, I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
security
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
So I'm just looking to see if there's something else that I need to. Okay, so. Those are all my, and then this too would need to be revised.
Oh, yeah.
Submit to us maybe you guys got it, the list from the police department. Maybe you get a copy
Yeah,
of
I
that,
get a
or
copy,
maybe
yes.
just forward that.
Sure.
Okay, so with all those, with that direction, I will continue it indefinitely. I'm not sure how quickly you're going to be able to get together with the chief of police to work on these items. I went through and I gave you the changes that I have identified. And so I'll continue you indefinitely to continue to work on the security plan and update I'm just going to call Exhibit A, because I know it is the operation plan as defined in the ordinance, but it's kind of broken out in different ways. Maybe if you think of a different title, or have this be the operation plan, and then this is the, just somehow differentiate it to get around that. But to make the revisions to the operation plan, or if you believe it doesn't warrant revision, provide information why, like the instance of the surveillance, of the 24-hour surveillance. That would be a situation where that you don't want to include it as part of your proposal. For this reason, we feel that we have met the objectives that the police department was trying to get at. And then if it is a condition of approval, you can appeal that. But if there's some other things that I discussed today, and you don't believe you want to add it into your operational plan, you can say why in the letter. But that's why I'm continuing you to further work on the security plan.
Yeah. The thing is, we have to believe in what we're doing. Definitely, we have to make sure like security and safety for the community, for the employees, for everyone in the neighborhood. But this thing's 24 hours. It's just like it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
But I will talk to Mr. Wagner, see,
Uh-huh.
like, discuss this matter with
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
briefly, and we'll let him know, like, we can open bank account, they can use credit card, there's no cash left in the safe, everything gonna be deposited in the bank every day. So there's other way to
I've
to
been
do
reading
this.
that they are trying to figure out a way to get bank options for cannabis. I mean, now after the new year and all of that.
It's more
Yeah, so-
easier.
Okay, well, so I'll continue indefinitely. We will renotice the public hearing, and I would, the yellow noticing sign that's up there, it just says, alerts people of an application pending, right? It doesn't have the actual hearing dates on it, huh?
That's right.
Okay. So if there's anybody still watching or turns in to the end of our meeting, if you want to be put on our interested parties list, please contact Tony Bowman, and he will include you in our mailing list, so you make sure you get the next public notice for this item. So I adjourn the meeting.
Tony, what is?